Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back. I have a special guest on our show today. His name is Shawn. I can't wait for him to share with us his story. He's got a quite a remarkable story, and he just had a recent win, not to give it away, but he's going to get into that in a little bit. So, Shawn, welcome to the Tony Shap Show, and take a second to say hello to the audience.
Hey, Tony, thanks so much for having me. Really excited to be here today. I appreciate the opportunity.
Of course, you're really welcome. So let's dive right in. Let's start with the one word open. So what's the one word you could use to describe how you're feeling right now, Shawn?
It'd have to be grateful. I'm a firm believer of any day I get to wake up 6 feet above ground is far better than the option of waking up 6 feet underground. So,
That's really great. A lot of people afterwards have been DMing me and asking me, why do you ask this weird question, Tony? Like one word open, one word close. And I got that from being in YPO and EO. I'm sure you've heard of the Entrepreneurs
absolutely.
Organization. And we always did like a parking lot when we got together as entrepreneurs once a month. And, we talked, and then how we could you could gauge someone and what they're dealing with was, what's that one word to describe your how you're feeling. So just for those of you that DM me, you know why I asked that question, and it's really close to me. So let's go right into business. Let's talk about your story. I would love to hear your why and more about your business, how you got started, and the milestones you've hit, and then where you're planning on going in this new year.
Sure. No, I started in the Army. I went to West Point, was a computer science guy, and unfortunately, I couldn't fall out of airplanes properly, so the Army kicked me out, and I went into startups and pretty much did startups for the next 15 years. And my wife finally came to me one day and said, "You know what? We need to have a sure income. If you want to start doing angel investing, let's go get a real job." And so I moved to the Middle East, did some work over there with some of the sovereign wealth funds, and thought I was pretty much done with startups. One of the things I've done consistently through my life since I graduated college is I've always worked on nonprofit boards. I got taught as a kid. I grew up in a middle-class military family. I got taught you give time or treasure. We didn't have a lot of treasures, so I give time. And over 20 plus years of serving on boards, the only thing I was frustrated in my philanthropic service was fundraising and not asking for money. As an entrepreneur, I have to ask for money for a living, right? It's just how ineffective and inefficient fundraising was in the nonprofit space. And I was back in the States for a board meeting for one of the angel investments my wife and I had made. And my Ranger buddy, who I went to West Point with, went through Ranger school with, pulled me aside before I flew out from Dulles back to Abu Dhabi and expressed the same frustration on fundraising. He had just gone through a capital campaign and thought it was really archaic. And he laments to me, he says, there's got to be a better way to do this. There's got to, there is technology out there that can make this easier. And that was the genesis of Boodle. We wanted to, I joke sometimes and say, the two of us are just really lazy. We knew that we're going to spend the next 20 years fundraising for nonprofits, and we didn't want it to be hard. As we put the business together, we knew that if we were going to make it a viable entity that would get funding and would grow and scale, that whatever technology we built would have to be able to port into the commercial sector. But we envisioned staying with the nonprofit space for several years. We launched, and in less than 1 year, we had board members who were in the commercial space seeing what our technology could do. And they very quickly said, wait a minute, if you can find our nonprofit donors that quickly, you can find me customers that quickly. And so we jumped into the commercial space a little bit sooner than we anticipated. We actually finished our first full year of sales with 80% of our clients being nonprofits, but 60% of our revenue coming from commercial clients.
Excellent. That's a remarkable story, especially your beginnings, and you started overseas and all that good stuff. That's really cool. If you don't mind sharing with us a recent win, Shawn, that would be great.
So the big win we had last year was our first institutional investor came in. So Osage Venture Partners out of Philadelphia invested in us out of their fifth fund. They're strictly B2B SaaS. And there's always, as an entrepreneur, I've had good and bad relationships with venture capitalists. And so there's a bit of a scare. This was really unique because we were their first investment that they made where they never met the founding team in person. So our first phone call was around March 16th of last year, right after the COVID shutdown. And we did 6 months of due diligence over Zoom. And they ended up closing the deal over Zoom. which is really puts a fear also on the entrepreneur side, because you're not sure who you're getting into bed with, if you will. And they have been amazing partners in the 4 months now that they've been on board. They have exceeded all expectations and been wonderful.
That's excellent. I know I was talking to some to other VCs, and they're saying, hey, with the COVID, we had to shift our business, working from home and everything, not going in office. And exactly what you said, they had to learn how to trust and use Zoom to kind of connect with people. And they've never had to do that before. Usually, they come to your office and pitch you, or you meet them at an event, and so there's a face-to-face interaction. But now Zoom is the next best thing. So
Yeah.
let's move on. Thanks for sharing that with us. So let's move on to something that's not such a, you know, positive improvement, or, positive. I don't want to use positive or negative. Let's just say something that was not a win. So if you could share with us something that recently happened that's not a win and what you learned from it, Shawn, that would be great.
I think one of the biggest struggles, as I look back over the 5 years of building this, has been in initially the first few years in firing quickly. And as leaders, you want to take care of your team, you want to take care of your people, and there's also kind of, if you hire someone, you have a responsibility to them. And what I had to learn or relearn, I guess, because I hadn't been building a business in over a decade, was that the business comes first. And there are people who are very valuable to you early on that the business may outgrow. Or there are people who will interview really, really well, and their first 30, 60, 90 days, they're just not who they said they were.
Hmm.
And as a CEO and as a leader and a founder in the business, you've got to take care of the business, and the business comes first. And so we've gotten much better at firing people quickly, if it's early on, if it's that first 90 days, and letting people go if the business has outgrown them. And in that latter case, we're much more, at least I am, we take a lot more time to help place that person. If they were valuable to the business and they provided value, got the business to where it could outgrow them, I want to help them. And so whether it's giving them extra months of time to find a job, whether it's networking for them, whatever it may be, but giving them that soft landing.
That's excellent. And I could really relate to that as well. I know it's been my experience that, do you keep someone on and keep them on the payroll if they're not a fit? In your mind as a leader, you're thinking, hey, that's kind of like a severance because I still have them on the payroll.
Yeah.
And then what happens is you end up breaking ties and you still have to pay a severance.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? So it's better to just outlay that money up front and then just have a clean break. It's almost like ripping off the Band-Aid. I was talking to my business coach. That was a huge breakthrough. It's like, do you want to slowly peel the Band-Aid and draw out payrolls for 6 months? And in your mind, you can't say that to the person that, hey, this is your severance. I want to do it over 6 months. It's like ripping the Band-Aid right away or slowly, right? So slowly over 6 months, or you rip the Band-Aid, given if it makes sense. Every business is unique and no one knows their business better than themselves, but it's better sometimes just to cut that check for the severance and have a clean break, rip that off. That way, that one bad apple doesn't spoil the whole basket of apples, so to speak, in
Absolutely.
your culture and everything. That was really, thanks for sharing that. Let's talk about questions that, whenever you're doing interviews, Shawn, is there like a certain question you wish people would ask you more and they never do? What would that be?
I guess it would be what I always like to know what drives people. Where do people focus? What makes them get up every morning, and what allows them to achieve, and what allows them, everybody fails, what allows them to overcome their failures. There's a great sign outside of our office. We have in our office, failing is not failure. There's opportunities to learn. So for me, the two things that have driven me throughout my life, one big thing is just integrity. No matter what you accomplish in this life, no matter how much money you make in this life, you can never buy your integrity back. Once you sacrifice that, it's gone. And that was something that was ingrained and instilled in me as a young cadet at West Point, starting at age 17. And I've carried that with me through life. It's sometimes hard to implement that and because of the consequences that result. But at the end of the day, you're able to hang your head high and walk forward, and people respect you for it. As far as kind of the words that keep me going, I also picked up during my plebe year at West Point It shocks a lot of people, but as a plebe in a military academy, you have a mandatory poetry class you have to take. And while we studied a lot of poems, one of the 5 big poems we had to focus on was Ulysses by Alfred Lord Tennyson. And the concluding line of that poem is one that has just stayed with me for years and one which I live by. And the concluding line of that poem, if you don't know it, is to strive, to seek, to find, and never to yield. And so that's just kind of how I've focused on that. And those words have meant so much to me that I named my 2-year-old son is named Tennyson after the poet. But yeah, if I had to answer what I wish people ask me about, it's what drives me. And I always like to know what drives other people.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us. So for those of you listening, be sure to press rewind and go back for about a minute when he, when Shawn talks about integrity, and also the poem that he shared with us that he carries on for every single day, which is really awesome. So thanks for sharing that gem with us, Shawn. Let's talk about quick thing about your business. So for those of the people that are listening and they could be a potential client of yours, can you share, like, who's the perfect fit for you? Who's the perfect client for you?
The clients we're looking for, I mean, what we've built at the end of the day is a people-focused predictive analytics platform that's powered by machine learning. Its ease of use is what really gets people. So it's companies that don't have large data science teams. They don't want to have large data science teams, but they still want the power of data and machine learning. So in the nonprofit space, it's organizations that are trying to find their best donors, whether it's major gift donors, donors who give on a monthly basis, donors who will bid a lot at an auction for an annual gala. On the commercial side, it's people looking for their best customers. So we have insurance companies trying to find people who will become lifetime customers, not people who buy a 1-year policy. We have e-commerce companies that have multiple SKUs, and once someone buys the first SKU, they want to see if they're likely to buy any of the other SKUs. So it's people trying to either add more donors or more customers that are going to become lifetime individuals to the organization, not just one-time purchasers or donors.
Awesome. And would you be able to stay in business if you did not accept credit card payments?
As a B2B SaaS business, we probably could, but our customers could not. Our direct-to-consumer customers and nonprofits take so many of their donations by credit card. There's no way they would ever be able to stay in business.
Got it. Thank you. And how can our listeners find out more information about your company?
I am Shawn at Boodle, BOODLE.ai, and I'm on LinkedIn. Very easily found, Shawn N. Olds on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Perfect. There you have it. And let's, audience, there you have it. And let's finish it up with a 1-word close, Shawn.
I'm still grateful. So I'll stick with grateful for today.
That's inspiring. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.